We're here in front of our legacy exhibit, which was created in honor of the 150th anniversary of Congregation Emanu in Victoria, British Columbia. Our legacy refers to our beautiful building. It was built in 1863 with the help of many churches in the community and the Freemasons. It's built in the Romanesque Revival style, which refers to the beautiful arches and the rosette window, which you can see up at the top. Our legacy also represents our pioneers. This represents only 8 of them, but there were 50 people who were involved in creating the congregation. Our pioneers came up from San Francisco in the mid to late 1850s. They came up to support the gold rush. Merchants, shopkeepers, men of intellect who helped to establish the city. On paper here we'll find copies of the earliest minutes, even before the building was built, discussing the creation of the building, how to fundraise. This panel is about Abraham Hoffman, who was a merchant in Victoria and in Barkerville, and he helped to spearhead the process of building our synagogue. Featured below is a page in the minutes from August 15th, 1862. Here's Abraham Hoffman's signature as secretary. This small book over here is from the Hebrew Ladies Society. Opened on that particular page, they were discussing one of the women's husband who had gone missing and what they were going to do to support her. So just, little snippets of everyday life. Pauline Reinhardt was one of the members of the Hebrew Women's Auxiliary, and she was a society woman and helped to do a lot of fundraising for various organizations in Victoria as well as for the congregation. That minute book over here from 1941 follows a discussion between the members on hiring a new rabbi. There's a panel on the side over there that shows another interesting passage through the archives that we found, specifically Rabbi Berner, who was a rabbi here from 1931 to 1941. It's a great little exploration when you're in the archives and being able to pick up a trail between 2 different parties. Here is Frank Sylvester. Frank Sylvester was the first Jewish man to set foot on the British colony, and he worked for J.P. Davies, an auctioneer, and he eventually became his father-in-law. This box was the original cornerstone box that was buried at the corner of Pandora and Blanchard in 1863. The only thing that remains are these coins that represents the different countries that our congregation came from the United States, from Germany, from England. There was no Canadian coin at that time, because we were still the British colony. In the background here, there's a newspaper article that talks about this ceremony and a big parade. We held a reenactment of that on June the 2nd, 2013, 150 years later.
And that this temple may become a bright gem among the glorious constellation of churches in this our adopted country.
The Freemasons came and they buried a second box on the corner as well. Here we have 3 examples of how our building has looked over 150 years. The second one in the 1960s, the whole entire building was covered over in plaster, including on the inside, and that was done to conserve energy. In 1982, the building was lovingly restored to its original self. That's the original Torah crown from the Torah scroll, donated to the synagogue in 1891. This is the original eternal light, which burned constantly hanging over the Torah ark. This is the Golden Book of Life, inscribed when people give a donation, inscribed for special occasions. This area I call my Chagall's dream, and it all started with our original wedding canopy, the chuppah, that was presented by the Hebrew Ladies of Victoria in March of 1864. It came to Victoria on a ship around Cape Hope. The wedding chuppah is now being cared for by the Royal BC Museum because it's in such a delicate state. And last year, Rabbi Harry had the idea to create a new chuppah that we could use from now on. So a group of 14 artists got together and created that beautiful quilted wedding canopy that you see juxtaposed beside it. These are all marriage certificates, the ketubah, that is signed by the bride and groom just after they get married. The third part of our legacy is represented in our Jewish rituals and customs. And many of the items that you'll see in this part of the exhibit are items that are on loan from our congregants. This particular case here has to do with Shabbat, and it also represents to me a second wave of immigration from the eastern part of Canada, well after the gold rush. Candlesticks, Kiddush cups, because that's what people brought with them. That was important for Shabbat. It's from England, from Russia, and various parts of Middle Eastern countries. Kiddush cups here from all the different little shtetls in Europe. This case represents various rituals in the Jewish calendar. We are looking here at various Havdalah boxes or spice boxes, which are used at the close of Shabbat, and they hold beautiful spices such as cloves and allspice and cinnamon. The scent is to lighten our souls so that we shouldn't be too sad that the Shabbat is finished, and it also represents the start of a new week. The spice boxes all have a similar style, and that being the tower. It represents the city hall tower of the different towns where they came from, because in the 1500s, spices were so expensive, they would have been stored in the city hall. These three ram's horns are used on the holiday of Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, and they are blown over 100 times to usher in the new year. And the center little pot is used to hold honey, and we eat honey and apples again for the sweet new year. This little outfit here belonged to our rabbi and his grandfather. It was used for 4 generations for the circumcision ceremony. Can you guess what that silver instrument does? It's used in the circumcision ceremony to hold the foreskin back. We use many different things to celebrate and embellish the holidays. Here we've got Passover, and this beautiful Passover Seder plate used during the ceremony at the dinner time. And we've got the holiday of Sukkot, where they shake the lulav and the etrog. During the holiday of Hanukkah, we play a little game with a spinning top called dreidel, and here's a really nice collection from several different families. And also for the holiday of Hanukkah, we've got this beautiful selection of menorahs. This is a very old Iraqi menorah, and the reason it's unusual is because it has little spots for Hanukkah as well as for Shabbat. And then on the wall we have a beautiful selection of oil-burning ones. Here we have some beautiful tefillin bags, and the tefillin, and the prayers that go inside the tefillin. And what's written inside there is the Shema, the same prayer that you have on the mezuzah on your doorpost. On the holiday of Purim, we read the story of Esther, which is written on an individual scroll. And here's a beautiful, very, very old one from an Arab market in Israel. Over in the far corner, we have 4 puppets that represent 4 main characters in the story of Esther. Here we have a tallis that was made by one of our congregants, and very many of the women in our congregation wear a prayer shawl, which is a little bit unusual, but in our congregation it's not. This is the Atara, the band that has the prayer that we say when we put on the tallis. These beautiful handwritten bills of sale represent the various Jewish merchants in Victoria. There's Lenz and Lyser and Simon Lyser and Katie Gambit's. These are all original. This is Henry Nathan Jr., and he was one of the first members of Parliament from Victoria to enter the House of Commons when BC joined Confederation in 1871. Frank Sylvester, this is a picture of his feed business, and this mezuzah is from the doorpost of his house, and the watch is a ceremonial watch given to his daughter. The Franklin brothers were of note in Victoria. Lumley Franklin was the 2nd mayor of Victoria, and his brother Selim, the 3rd Jewish member of legislature in all of British North America. Samuel Davy Schultz, he was the first Jewish judge in Canada, and a sportsman and a musician. This is the Charge at Dawn, the march that he wrote in 1900 for the Canadian heroes at Parleburg in the Boer War. These are beautiful auction catalogs from his grandfather, J.P. Davies. J.P. Davies being one of our original pioneers. This is the facade of his auction house. This is his son Joshua. This artifact here is a beautiful gold medallion that was given to him by the Oddfellows. And this beautiful gold watch given to Judah P. Davies for his service. The teapot was Maria's, that's Maria Davies, J.P.'s wife. It's a beautiful pewter teapot that was brought from England. Lewis came from San Francisco. When he came through his migration, they said, "What's your name?" And he said, "Lewis." And they said, "What's your last name?" And he said, "Lewis." So he's Lewis. He was the president of the congregation in the 1870s for 8 years. On this chart, we have the descendants of Judah P. Davies, and his grandson is Samuel Davies Schultz. His grandson, Robert Dunwell Schultz, is living on Bowen Island, and his grandson, River Samuel Soloway, and he were at our festivities on June the 2nd. This is a beautiful drawing of the synagogue done after the restoration in 1982, and it was done by Ben Levinson, who's an architect in town. The heart of every Jewish home is the kitchen, and I like to close the exhibit with these items that are featured here. We use the same old choppers that our grandmothers did, and the same old cookbooks, chocked full with loose pieces of paper and extra recipes. And here is a Yiddish and English cookbook printed by Manischewitz Company with Passover recipes. And this beautiful tablecloth here is a communal tablecloth. We embroidered the tablecloth in honor of and in memory of community members and community events. As the artifacts are packed up and sent back to their homes, we'll have a lasting memory, our legacy for the next 150 years.